So now you're used to, what countries have you traveled to? Have you seen the police on the streets of other countries? When you go to Mexico, that corrupt country just south of us, where now thousands of people are dying a week, where there's not only the gang violence and stuff, but those people have gun control, don't they? And they also have what are known as the federales. Have you ever been to Mexico? Have you ever met a federale? Let me give you my little federale story. There I was going with my in-laws, traveling down to Mexico because they had some property down there, which of course they couldn't own because they weren't Mexican. Okay, they could only lease it. So the question for you is, have you ever met federales? So I met some federales. They made everybody get out of the van. We were traveling. We were in Arizona going down to Mexico. And get out of the van and start tearing the seats apart until finally my brother-in-law said, here, have some money, some Federal Reserve notes. Okay, everybody back in the van, you're okay to go. Is that the kind of government you get when you get what? Military? I mean, what's the military for? Last time I checked, they were supposed to defend the country. Okay, that's what they're for. And they're for war. It used to be called the Department of War. Do you remember that? Do you remember when it was called the Department of War? And so a military does what? They break things. Remember we bombed bridges over in Iraq, and so that what? We can tax you to rebuild them. So they paid to break things, and they're paid to kill people. They've been very efficient. I believe the numbers now are well over 1 million Iraqis. Now, I ask you viewers, did Iraq attack us? And if Iraq didn't attack us, what does that mean? Is that defense? If you're not attacked, yet you kill 1 million citizens in another country, is it the Department of Defense? Has the defense industrial complex done what Eisenhower warned us it would do? Do they work for the globalist bankers or do they work for you? All the good people in the military, and there are a lot of good people in the military. Remember, there was Fox Fallon. Wasn't he a Navy admiral who resigned? Why did he resign? What came out in the New York Times afterwards? Something about Cheney, and he was going to use U.S. Navy SEALs dressed up as Iranians and painted up patrol boats to attack a Navy ship so they could justify attacking Iran. Yet you, I don't know about you, did you believe them? Would they do that? What does false flag terrorism mean? Do you really think a guy in a cave attacked us on 9/11? Why would the FBI collect all 80 tapes of the 80 cameras that had views on that angle of the Pentagon, yet only give you 5 frames? 5 frames, 1/6 of a second. For regular TV timing, 5 frames, 1/6 of a second. Why would they only give you 5 frames to look at? Why did they tell you about Ted Olson's wife, who was on Flight 77, who supposedly made a phone call and said box cutters and knives? Yet you find out by the FBI in 2006, during a trial, that guess what? That phone never got connected. There was, quote, an attempted call with 0 seconds. No connection. Yet you didn't ask those questions, didn't you? You don't want to hear this. It doesn't sound good. It's scary when you think that, God, we could have let criminals get into such control that they control our media so they can control what you believe. Okay, we've let criminals decide to give you serotonin uptake inhibitors so that 100 million Americans are getting Prozac prescriptions. We've allowed criminals to start wars based on lies. We've allowed torture. Have you allowed torture? Do you want torture here in Sharon? Is that what you need? Maybe you need more no-fly lists. Like I said, how long until it's a no-buy list? How long until it's a no-food list? How much time do you think it's going to take before it's a no-job list? At what point do you think it'll be a no-benefits list? When does fascism? When does fascism? How is fascism? Can you recognize fascism? Do you think there was change with Obama? Do we still have Gates in charge of the Department of Defense? 26 years with the CIA? That's a guy I'm going to trust. What's the CIA good for? Oh yeah, they're good for moving drugs in the country. I forgot all about that. Remember why don't you Google CIA plane crashes in Mexico, tons of cocaine on board? Why don't you Google Mena, Arkansas? Why don't you Google? What does it take for you to start getting involved and to realize that when our federal government is setting up camps to detain Americans, how much Googling does it take to type in Kellogg, Brown, and Root? a subsidiary of Halliburton. Isn't that Dick Cheney? A subsidiary of Halliburton, building detention facilities. And now, House Resolution, 645 or something. We're going to build million-man camps at Army bases. Why? So you can go in and visit your neighbor when they're at that camp? Oh, I'm sure it's real good looking through the wire. Holocaust survivors, listen up. Is it fun visiting people behind wire? What happens to people behind wire? When will you Holocaust survivors, get off your derrieres? When will you warn your neighbors that people on lists is not good? When will you warn their neighbors that people in camps is not good? When will you warn your neighbors that you've seen this before? What will it take? Sharon has Holocaust survivors. How come they're not standing up right now? Where are they? Why don't I hear them? What will it take? When will you say, you know, enough's enough? I guess maybe they're on Ritalin. Is there a possibility that they're on Prozac? Might they be on 6 or 7 pharmaceuticals? Is it important to know that most of the pharmaceutical companies after the consolidation are now owned or through some subsidiary of a German company like IG Farben? Weren't they the company that made the gas that they used in the camps with the people behind the wires where they had lists and they rounded people up and they detained them? What happened to jury of your peers? At what point will you say the Constitution's important? At what point will you say the Second Amendment's important? After they start taking guns and tell you, well, that gun you can't have. We've decided what gun you can have. When will those Holocaust survivors stand up and say freedom of speech is important? Because they're the ones who say never forget. What if we say you can't say that anymore because, oh, that's against Obama? Remember, he's brought by God. You think I'm kidding. You got preachers preaching this. Look at the love affair. You got a president now came with a logo. Meanwhile, your Kennedys and your Kerrys, your representatives, are telling you you need camps and detention facilities. Should I get into? Yeah, I'll give you some overdrive stuff. You want some overdrive stuff? Here's some overdrive stuff for you viewers. Hang on, let me dig it up. I held off on it, but I shouldn't have. I should have just drilled you with it. Okay? Yeah, here you go. Why don't you learn about this? Did you ever hear of Operation Garden Plot? Hey, it's funny. While we still have a Freedom of Information Act, while you can still get information, let me read to you from an This is United States Civil Defense Plan 55-2. Could you believe there's a United States Civil Defense Plan 55-2? Rather interesting, huh? Hey, once again, maybe it's time, huh? Tyranny response? So let me read to you. You civilian, you citizen. Let me tell you what's in store for you. Okay, well, Let's see, under the plan, the deployment of the Operation Garden Plot, the use of SIDCON-1 will be mandatory. You don't know what that means, do you? And you probably are more worried about whether or not they trade some baseball player in Sharon. Oh my God, the Red Sox, I got a pink Red Sox hat. I've about had it with you sports fans when you don't even care enough about your children to fight tyranny. This really bothers me. Why don't you go back to the Colosseum in Rome and watch them, watch the gladiators kill each other and go, ooh, wow, while they throw you bread, right? It's bread and circus. But I'll get off you. Okay, so anyway, it's interesting. It goes on, direct support of civil disturbance operations used by the Army, the United States Air Force, and the Navy, and the Marine Corps, okay, with an airlift force to be provided by blah, blah, blah. Okay, all aerial reconnaissance, airborne psychological operations. What does airborne psychological operations mean? What do you think that means? Okay, it gets better. Okay, I'll read to you. We're going to quote from it. If any civil disturbance by a resistance group, someone who resists tyranny, could it be? Okay, by a resistance group, religious organization, or other persons considered to be nonconformist. Hey, don't you love the way the military writes? Nonconformist takes place. This is what you get to look forward to. Okay, Annex of Plan 55-2 hereby gives all federal forces total power over the situation if local and state authorities cannot put down said dissenters. Oh my gosh, these people don't want to go in the camps. Oh my gosh, these people want to keep their Second Amendment. Oh my gosh, they still want freedom of speech. Oh my gosh, they don't want taxation without representation. Oh my gosh, they don't want to take forced injections. Oh my gosh, they don't believe the lies.